Hello, welcome to the main part of our fifth lesson. Yes, this is our fifth lesson. So welcome to it. I hope you enjoy it. Today we're going to move forward to the medieval times education, especially. We will prepare ourselves for the last part and the last activity, which will be to analyze a case in which you have to travel to the past. But let's keep it there for the time being. Okay, I will start talking today about the man on the picture, who is Charlemagne. Charlemagne or Charles the Great. Charlemagne became the sole and undisputed ruler of the then Frankish dominions, the paramount sovereign of the Western Christendom. Under Charlemagne's rule, there was a shift in the way education was going to. So far, teaching was reduced to reading, writing, and some basic knowledge of Latin and religious instructions. It was perhaps, and because of his ideas and vision of future, that he saw the need of raising the cultural level of his subjects. We may say that his intention was not genuine in the sense that he loved his people, but perhaps he saw education as a weapon of political domination and superiority over the other peoples. Well, the truth is that he started to persuade foreign scholars to come to his land to educate not only the noble and aristocratic class, but the common French. So education broadened his limits outside the nobility and the aristocratic and the court. The shift was also given in the topics and manner of teaching. It went from training the high-class children in the knightly way of life to the development of intellectual abilities, the liberal arts. He definitely saw the seeds of the university, which stem from emergent schools. One of the first ones was the Palatine School, run by Alcuin of York, a scholar who was personally invited by Charlemagne. At those time, France, or the Frankish Empire, it wasn't France yet, was the center of intellectual activity, especially in the 12th century. It was often said that Italy has the papacy, Germany the empire, and France has the knowledge. France has the brain. 2/3 of the leading philosophers and theologians of the 13th century were all associated at some extent with the University of Paris, which arose from the Cathedral School of Notre Dame and other schools of Paris. There are some of the most brilliant minds in the medieval times. Hugh of St. Victor, Peter Lombard, John of Salisbury, Thomas Aquinas, Duns Scotus, Scotus Origena, Bernard of Tours, Saint Bonaventure, Saint Albert the Great, Roger Bacon, Henry of Ghent, Raymond Lull, for example. I have omitted some pictures because of the size of them. The thing is that scholars in medieval times may come to Paris for the studies and then return to Oxford or Bologna in Italy to teach, or other places, small towns and villages, carrying with them the ideals and spirit of the great University of Paris. Beside the Palatine and some other court-related schools, there were schools attached to monasteries open to the general public, but with separate regimes. One of them was the Schola Claustri, destined to the wannabe monks and priests, and the other one was the Schola Exterior, destined to the ordinary pupils. Whether you fall into one group of students or the other, you won't escape from the tribune and the quadrivium. Tribune and quadrivium were what we call the liberal arts. So the tribune was grammar, rhetoric, and dialectics. Grammar, correct use of language. Rhetoric, nice and persuasive use of language. Dialectics, argumentative use of language. The next stage was the quadrivium, arithmetics, numbers in the abstracts, in rest, geometry, numbers in space, rest, music, number in time, movement, astronomy, number in space and time, movement. You may wonder now, and this is a very logical question, where is philosophy there? Where does it fit within the tribune and quadrivium? Well, there was some confusion in the Middle Ages between dialectics and philosophy, which brought strong controversy and disputes among scholars of the time. It was because of the brilliant minds of men such as Anselm of Canterbury, Peter Abelard, Thierry of Chartres, who founded the school of Chartres, John of Salisbury, who began to deal with problems of metaphysics and psychology, thus creating a place for philosophy itself, separated and beyond and independent of the liberal arts. The liberal arts then became propedeutic, contributing to philosophy. They were called now, from now on, or from then on, the 7 ways to reach higher studies. There was another not minor controversy at those times. Was philosophy propedeutic and subordinated to theology? Some scholars used to say that philosophy was the handmaiden of theology, and like a servant, it should place itself at the service of his masters. The most radical went even further, saying that philosophy is the devil's art. All this brought a great deal of debate and discrepancy among the most brilliant minds. Using philosophy reasoning in biblical argumentation and knowledge production was forbidden and sometimes condemned as heretic. The worldly affairs should be left alone and separated from the divine and the sacred. The struggle between reason and faith eventually came to a happy end. According to the 12th century Codex of Regensburg, philosophers were humanae licet sapientae amatores, lovers of human wisdom, whereas theologians were divinae scripturae doctores, masters in the divine scriptures. As long as these debates and discussion were coming to a resolution, the university took its primal form in the faculties of arts, because of the teaching of the liberal arts, faculty of theology, faculty of law, and the faculty of medicine. Faculty of philosophy sprang from and was separated from the faculty of theology. The faculty of arts was considered an inferior faculty because of its syllabus and because of the age of its students. The students at those times were not given a certificate, a diploma, but a recognition of grade, which remind us our modern title degrees. So, but baccalaureus or bachelor, licentiatus or licentiate, and magister, mastership. Okay. So far of medieval times education, but now before you start the reading of today's lesson and start the final activity, I leave you with the next question. Let's use our imagination. In case you were born in the 12th century, would you endure monastic life and education just to become a teacher? Think about it. Now you have to endure or enjoy the reading of the day, and after that there will be the final activity, which is an analysis of case. You will have to imagine that you are time travelers and you go back to medieval times, and you are students, and you are facing and enduring monastic life. But I leave you there. See you in the next class. Remember, if you've got some questions, if you got some doubts, or you need some assistance, I will look forward to hear from you in the queries forum, or in case you need some other kind of assistance, I'll be there. See you in the next class. Bye-bye.